We are at 4:31, so I think that we'll just get started. I just want to begin by welcoming everybody who's here. It's so amazing to see so many friends from all over the place and so many Oberlin students, and I'm just delighted to welcome everyone. A couple of things before we begin and I introduce our very, very special guest. To begin with, the Theater Roundtable is something that our department just started this past fall. I was not teaching and was searching desperately for a way to stay involved with the program and students. And so I sort of kicked off this Theater Roundtable, which has been tremendously successful. We've had so many interesting guests and discussions, and this time of Zoom has been really wonderful in that respect, that we're able to communicate with people that we might not have been able to before. So it's been really, really exciting and thrilling. And the other thing before we begin is I just want to begin with a little bit of a land acknowledgement here. And because this has not passed into common usage on the Oberlin campus yet, although I'm sure that we are about to institute it as a way of being. I just want to let people who are tuning in, especially our students, know exactly what a land acknowledgement is. A land acknowledgement recognizes and respects the relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and their ancestral and contemporary territories. Additionally, a land acknowledgement provides opportunity to explore the current impact of colonization and systemic oppression on Indigenous peoples. Land acknowledgements do not exist in past tense or historical context, as colonialism is a current ongoing process. And so as we begin today, we acknowledge that Oberlin College occupies lands that are the ancestral home of the Erie tribe, known as the Cat Nation, and that were later absorbed by the Iroquois Nation, and who were displaced by the 1830 act that moved Indians from their ancestral homes. So with that, I am delighted to get rid of this little thing here. Don't say it. And I'm back. And welcome our very, very wonderful guest, Miss Judy Kuhn. Everybody give her a round of applause. We're so happy that you're here and so happy that you've taken the time from your schedule to share with us. And for those of you who might not know, although I can't imagine it, Judy is, in fact, an Oberlin alumna. She graduated in 1981 from the conservatory. And we're just going to spend some time today talking with Judy about how she came to Oberlin, what her time at Oberlin was like, and then, of course, what her time after Oberlin has been like. So it's going to be a very informal conversation between us. We're going to show a little bit of a clip later on, and talk to Judy also about process, about actors' process, because we're a theater department, and that's what we are here to learn. So without further ado, Judy, tell us how you wound up at Oberlin.
Oh my God, you want me to think back that far?
Yeah, if you can.
You know, how did I wind up at Oberlin? I wanted to go to a place that I wanted to go to a good liberal arts college that had good theater, music, you know. I didn't really, I don't think I thought about it too much, to be honest.
It shows you.
But it seemed like a good place for me.
No.
And when I entered, I was in the college, and after my first year, I transferred into the conservatory.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's an interesting fact that I didn't know. I was I just watched the interview you had with John Doyle in which you were talking about that. I didn't realize that. I thought that you had always been a conservatory student. So I thought that's really interesting. You also did say to him that at that time, the theater department was a mess, which I'm sure is true. No, I wasn't here. None of us, none of the faculty who are here now was there then. But I'm sure it was a little crazy at that time.
Wasn't a mess. I think it was in transition, and I was a very anxious person and shy, and I guess it didn't feel welcoming to me, and it probably it could have been just me. I don't really remember much about it except that while I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, as you know, like what was my major going to be and
Right.
what classes did I want to take, I started taking voice lessons with a student in the conservatory.
Right.
And I had such a great time. And then I started thinking, because I was thinking I'll be an English major or maybe a theater major. And then I thought maybe I should be a music major. And he said to me, if you want to be a music major, you should audition for the conservatory because you'll get the most out of what this place has to offer if you were actually in the conservatory. So I sort of wrestled with that for a while and I decided to give it a go. So I did.
And yeah, and I don't mean to embarrass you by recalling that. I found it actually hilariously funny because stories are legion about the theater department. You know, it did go through a kind of a messy transition there for a while, I think. So and certainly, as I said, you're not insulting any of us. None of us was here then. So so I just think I loved hearing that story, and I particularly loved hearing you talk about the fact that auditioning was hard for you, that it scared you, that you were afraid of it to a certain degree.
Still am. I think everybody is really, let's face it. But yeah, I don't know. I was so shy back then.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking when I thought this should be a good career for a very shy person. I don't know, maybe it was like my therapy to get over my shyness. I don't know, but I
At
really
any
had
rate,
trouble walking into a room and I was afraid that people would make me improvise, or I was just afraid. I don't know, I was just afraid.
yeah, well, and that was a period in our theater history when things were a little wild. I mean, you know, we were trying all kinds of things. And yeah, and if you were shy, if your disposition was in any way like not about huge expression, I can imagine that it would be really intimidating. But fortunately for all of us, you wound up in the conservatory. And I was also not surprised particularly, but really interested to learn that you never really considered a career in classical singing, that was not your agenda at all.
No, and it's one of the reasons why it kind of came, the idea of auditioning for the conservatory was sort of came as a surprise to me
Right.
because I had never thought about um, a career in classical music. It wasn't my only experience singing classical music was when I was in high school. So I with along with my dad, we sang in the Washington Oratorio Society. So we sang with the symphony, and that was I loved singing choral music. And in fact, when I got to Oberlin, one of the first things I did do was audition for the Oberlin choir or chorus or both, or I don't know. And I didn't get in, and I was devastated. I was devastated. And I think it's one of the reasons I decided I want to take voice lessons, because I thought, I guess I got to be I got to be better if I'm going to get into the Oberlin chorus.
Right. Right. That's so funny. I had no idea that that was the case. That's just very, very funny to me. So, so, but then you were here and you graduated, I'm assuming, in 4 years' time.
Actually,
Um, In five? So, okay. Were
Well,
you a double degree student or?
when I started out, when I was admitted to the conservatory, I thought about doing a double degree in music and maybe English. But then I realized that at that time, I don't know if it's still the same when you're double degree, you basically have to take all of your college classes in your major.
Yes, right.
I wanted to be able to take whatever I wanted to take. So I abandoned that idea. And I guess what happened then is I studied with, I don't even remember her name. I'm going to be honest. I wasn't crazy about the teacher I was assigned to. And everybody said, Richard Miller, he's the best.
Uh-huh.
And this very shy girl, after I think a year, and after what was then my sophomore year, towards the end of my sophomore year, I decided I was going to take a semester off for my first semester junior year. I don't know, I just wanted a semester off. But this very shy girl went and knocked on Richard Miller's door and said, I would like to study with you. And he said, oh, and we met and I sang for him and we talked. And he said, I think I'd like to work with you. And I told him I was thinking of taking a semester off. So he told me about a teacher. I was going to take a semester and live in New York.
Mm-hmm.
He told me about a teacher in New York. He said, I want you to study with her. And then when you come back, you'll be in my studio. Now, by then, I hadn't done any recital work. So I had to do all of my recital work in a very short period of time. So, and I wanted to, get used to being in his studio and what he wanted, what direction he wanted me to go in. And so I wound up adding on another year, and I didn't take that many classes. I did my junior recital in the first semester and my senior recital in the second semester. So
you learned a lot of repertory really fast.
I think I also have spent a summer there studying with him too. I can't really, so long ago, I can't really remember. I just remember that he basically revolutionized the way I thought about technique, the way I thought about language, the way I thought about performance. I feel like everything I do now started with working with him.
Remarkable.
Yeah.
Remarkable. So you graduated in 5 years, and then what happened?
What happened was I just didn't know what to do. I mean, as I said, I knew I wasn't going to launch a career in classical music.
Right.
I was still interested in theater, but I really didn't know what to do. I had some friends who were going to live in Boston, in the Boston area. My brother was there. He was still in school. And I just thought, all right, I'm just going to go there and just to start out. And I got this apartment with a friend, and in Somerville, I got a job waiting tables. I think I found a voice teacher. I volunteered with these teachers who were teaching arts in public schools that didn't have arts programs. And I just sort of tried to figure out what I wanted to do. And somebody, and I wish I could remember who it was because I owe them a lot, said, because I guess I always talked about wanting to do theater, but really kind of feeling confused about how to go about doing that. Someone said, there are these summer stock companies everywhere, and they have these auditions in New York for these summer stock companies. I think they were called the Straw Hat auditions.
Yes.
And so I thought, well, why don't I just spend a summer doing that and see what that's like? And I did. I wound up going to the New London Barn Playhouse and spending a summer there. And I think I'd never been so happy in my life, working, doing a million shows, sewing costumes, painting scenery for free for your room and board. And then they gave you, $50 at the end to get. And I just loved it. And while I was there were, a lot of people there who were, New York professionals, people who said, you really should come to New York. And I thought, if I don't give it a try now, I never will. So I
Right.
did. I moved to New York and just, found an acting teacher, found an apartment, started figuring out how to go to auditions, called anybody I knew to say, I'm here. What advice do you have for me? And people were really generous, and,
The
I
rest is history,
made
as they say.
my way.
Yeah. So those first few years in New York, I think it's critical because so many of the people who are watching right now are getting ready to make the leap, and in the weirdest of times, right? None of us can imagine what
Yes.
what it must be like for, to graduate from college in the middle of a pandemic, and to try to do the
Yeah.
whole thing is really quite remarkable, honestly. um Unimaginable in some ways for me. So if you could just talk to us a little bit about that early experience in New York and finding an acting teacher, and and what auditions were like then, because it's a very different world now. Because I was there at the same time you were, so it was definitely not as it is now.
It's definitely different now, and I couldn't really tell you how
Mhm.
things work now, but for young people who are starting out. But I as I said, I called people um, that I knew or that were friends of my parents. It happened, social capital, right? My old friend, one of my mother's oldest friend, his husband happened to be the head of the Juilliard School, the acting division.
Wow.
And I called him up and I said, I'm looking for a teacher. And he was like, you know, your friends' children start calling you up. And I said, and he said, well, I do know there is a teacher, wonderful acting teacher at Juilliard, and I know he teaches a private class. I have no idea if he'd take you, but if you want to send me your, picture and resume, which of course I barely had a resume. Anyway, there was a man named John Stix. I have a very funny story about him, but he was amazing. And I met with him, he said, okay, prepare a monologue or two, and we'll meet. And I went up to Juilliard and we sat in his office, and I explained that I really had no training. And I did some monologues for him, and I'll never forget. He looked at me, he went, hmm, I can see you have no training, but you're very interesting. You can be in my class. So I joined his class, and it was, again, eye-opening to me because he was an amazing teacher, and I just learned so much. But just on a side note, several years later, when I did my first, well, my only national tour, which was the King and I with Yul Brynner, he told me to go to meet his brother when I was in St. Louis. And to make a very long story short, it was discovered that we were cousins.
You and John Stix are cousins?
Yeah, distant, like second cousins, 3 times removed, something. But because just crazy story. Well, it's a longer story, but it was discovered on this trip that we were actually related.
That's so funny. And something that I'm learning about you as a young woman is that you were very shy, but you were very forthright. like you had no problem, you know, going to the big teachers and saying, "Hey, I want to be your student," which
No,
that's
I did.
remarkable.
Somehow I found courage in these moments where I was like, if I, I don't know. I'm sure there were friends and people who pushed me, like, go ahead, do it, do it, do it. But it's through those experiences that you learn that you can and you should do those things.
Right.
It's sort of a lifelong journey of getting over those
Right, exactly.
ways that you get in your way. But
And that people are just people, they're
yes,
they're people too. So
yes.
that they probably appreciate the moxie that it takes to actually, come forward. So that's fantastic. And then somewhere along the way, so you did a national tour of The King and I. And when was that? Was that early on? Was that before?
Yeah, I mean, that came about, it's so funny. I think about those things and how much sort of chance played into, it's like, it's such a combination of chance and luck and, talent and for just, fortuitousness. Is that the word? I mean, just
Yeah.
determination. But these two jobs I got right around the same time, and it's when I got my equity card. And one was with this children's theater company now called Theater Works. It was called something else. It was sort of famous for young actors getting their equity card by being hired by them. And that job came because I went to an open call. I did not have my equity card. I went to an open call. There was a line. They were in a studio in Soho. There was a line down the stairs and out the door and down the block, and it was middle of winter and it was freezing cold. And I was standing in this line and I was so cold. I don't do well in the cold. And I stood there for so long, and it was barely inching along. And I thought, this is so stupid. I'm just going to go home. What's the point of this? And right at that moment, a friend of mine walked down the street and saw me. And so we started chatting. And while we were chatting, the line moved. And when the friend went away, I was just at the bottom of the stairs. So I thought, oh, well, now I might as well stay. And I went in and I had this great audition that was also a confidence building audition. And I got that job and I got my equity card. And I thought if that friend hadn't come along, I wouldn't have gotten that job.
Right.
And then the next thing that happened, and I guess this must have been this was before that job actually started. I went to another open call for, I don't even remember what it was, but it was some like the chorus of some Broadway show where they were seeing non-equity actors. And I, again, put my name on a list and I sat there for hours. And then they had us do like 8 or 16 bars and they wanted to hear a high note. And I was in line. They did this horrible thing where they called 10 people at a time and you'd line up in the hall and the door was open. So you watched and listened to all the auditions that people are auditioning in front of you, and everybody could hear your audition, all the people who are behind you. Anyway, I chose to sing the last 8 or 16 bars of My Lord and Master from The King and I, because I had done it in summer stock and it had that high note. So I did that. And as I was leaving, this woman came chasing after me and said, "Was that you?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Would you come in tomorrow and audition for Mitch Lee and Yul Brynner?" I said, I'm sorry, what? And it turned out that this national tour was rehearsing down the hall. They happened to be on a lunch break when I was auditioning, so their door was open. And they had just been told by their tuptim that she was getting married and she wanted a 5-month leave of absence from the tour. So they were going to bump up the understudy and they needed to find another understudy. And so I went in the next day and auditioned for them. And they were like, you have your equity card? And I was like, well, I just was offered a job that's going to give me my equity card. Anyway, so it was all just this weird, like, you never know.
It was kismet, right? It was just meant to be. I mean, come on. That's how else can you explain it? It's crazy. What a fabulous story, though. I've never heard that story. That's really quite remarkable. So, and of course, all those auditions were probably happening at the Ansonia. I'm like, I flop sweat just thinking about it because honestly, I spend every day at the Ansonia Hotel auditioning for everybody and their brother. So funny to me. Anyway, so you did a national tour, and then looking at your resume, I am assuming that Edwin Drood was your first Broadway show. Is that true?
That is true. Yes. When I came, I just went out on the road for 5 months. I was very sad when they said, okay, your time's up. We're sending you home. Um, I went to an open call. I'm trying to remember how I got in the room here. I think it was because the casting director at the Public Theater had been at one of these summer stock places I was at.
Oh.
Anyway, somehow I got in to audition for Drood, and they were looking for someone who could understudy Betty Buckley and Patty Cohenauer play. I don't know why they decided to combine those two to have a belter and a soprano, but anyway, by that point I had my classical training and I learned how to belt.
Right.
So I had many auditions for that. It was originally in Central Park at the Delacorte.
Right.
Had several auditions, ending up with the whole firing squad with Joe Papp and Wilfred Leach and Graciela Danielle and Rob Marshall and all these people. It was terrifying.
Absolutely.
Job, so.
Absolutely.
And then it, moved to Broadway, and it was my first Broadway show.
Fantastic. And so, yeah, actually, a colleague of yours in that show stabbed me on the stage at McCarter Theater by accident, but I I had to go to the emergency room in Princeton. We won't mention names, but
Wait,
she was, yes, I was doing this play at the McCarter Theaters back in like 1983, and it was right before it was right before Drood, and this woman was in the play, and I was playing a Nazi soldier, and she had to stab me. She missed the stab pad and stabbed me in the back, like emergency room level. So anyway, and then she was nominated for a Tony Award. So I was like, anyway, it was a very wild experience. So that's why I always associate Edwin Drood with that, with that story.
Okay.
And then I did it, actually. I was in it not all that long ago, a few years ago. But anyway, so, and then if you look at your resume, it was like the next 5 or 6 years must have just been crazy for you, because you started out, I have to refer to my notes here. So Drood was 85, Rags was 86.
Right, yeah, I left Drood to do Rags, yeah.
Les Mis was 87. It was like one after another. And then Chess was 1988. Yeah. So it was like that was a big meaty part of your career, those next few years. Yeah, go ahead.
It was kind of crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything I aimed for or planned for or anything.
It just happened. It happened. Well, and because, I mean, you are Judy Kuhn. I mean, you have your own unique set of gifts.
There were so many things, and this is why, you just have to, you never know what's going to happen, and right. how things happen in the craziest ways, which is how I sort of learned to just go for things, no matter what, because you never know where they're going to lead. And Rags, it was crushing disappointment when Rags closed. Yeah. And yet, if it hadn't, I wouldn't have been able to do Les Miserables.
Right.
And so I did Les Mis, and then that year on the Tony Awards, I was performing with the Les Mis company, and Rags had been nominated for Best Musical, and they wanted Teresa Stratas, who was the star of the show, to sing, and she declined. Yeah. And I happened to sing the title song. So they asked me if I would sing that in a very cut down version of it. on the awards, which was terrifying. I'd never performed on live television before, and I hadn't done the show in almost a year. Um, so anyway, but that was a big belty song.
Mm.
And well, Trevor Nunn was sitting in the audience at the Tonys because of Les Mis, and was just starting to think about how he might cast Jess. And so I sang that song, and he went, oh, because he thought of me as Cosette, soprano, you know, ingenue, whatever. And that was the first, he had the idea that maybe I could play Florence in chess. And so had me come in when he started auditioning for that. So it was sort of like, just again, kismet.
Amazing.
You know, maybe I would have had the chance to get in that door too, because I knew Trevor and at that point, and you know, maybe my agents would have pushed for me, but uh,
Yeah. Meant to be, right? Just meant to be.
and
So, but then also it was like a cavalcade of award nominations. So you were nominated for Cosette. I mean, the original Cosette in Les Mis in the American company. That's, you know, quite a remarkable feat. So you were nominated for a Tony for that and for chess. And then later on in your career, because I actually want to talk about, there's a real Broadway hiatus in your career there for a while. And then you were nominated for She Loves Me for the roundabout remounting of She Loves Me. And then, of course, Fun Home, which we'll get to in just a minute. But all of those projects are so different. And in the way that you entered those projects and the point at which you entered those projects is also different. Like by the time Les Mis got to the United States, it had already, I mean, it started in 1980 in France and then
right.
was adapted and then was on the West End and then came to Broadway. So it was already a fully formed entity by the time you became involved in it. I'm imagining that chess was still, was it in development or was
Oh,
it
chess,
pretty?
they started all over again with chess. You know, Richard Nelson, great playwright, wrote a new book. It was very much rethought. There was a new song that they wrote for me. So it was really, it was interesting because, you know, Trevor Nunn directed both those shows and I did them back to back, but his process in each of them were so different
Interesting.
that it was, again, you know, it was really, I remember this actually brings me back to John Sticks, because there was a moment when I was going to apply to grad school. I felt like I wanted some
Oh, right.
conservatory training. And I got into a couple of schools. And then I got offered that job with the King and I, those other jobs that I talked about before. And I didn't know what to do. And I said, what should I do? And he said, go to work. He said, let the rehearsal room be your classroom. And I never forgot that. And I mean, there's part of me that still wishes I had gone to grad school, but you know, can't, you know, that ship has sailed. So, um,
Can
but
you imagine Judy Kuhn showing up in your graduate acting class? Hilarious.
actually, I would love it. But you know, having those two opportunities so early in my career to work with Trevor Nunn on these two very different shows, was a classroom. I mean,
Mm.
he was a teaching director, and I learned so much. It was so formative for me.
Yeah. And isn't that just the best? I love when that happens, when you know you're challenged by everyone around you and you learn fast
Oh yeah,
sometimes. So
he was a great storyteller. You know, he taught me about storytelling. And he uses the language of storytelling. I mean, he was doing that in Les Mis all the time. He would say, you know, if when you cross down, when you turn this way and you go there, it tells the story that, you know, when you when you pick that up and look at it, it tells the story that, and you start thinking about
well,
every moment as being a storytelling moment, and what you choose tells a different story.
I
And I,
love that.
yeah.
I really love that. And well, and it's also as an actor, it's so helpful to have that because it starts to, it seems to me like it starts to fill your interior space. Like you start to think about literally how each moment is connected. How fabulous. What a great direction. I wish somebody had ever said that to me. But now you have. So and now I'm going to steal it and use it myself. I love that. So chess is one thing. And then um, so we had these all of these great successes, and then there was a bit of time when you weren't, at least according to your resume, you weren't on stage in New York, and I imagine you were doing other things like being a mother and 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 also working elsewhere probably.
Was I went to London after chess. I went to London for the better part of a year. And then also, I you say success. Chess wasn't a huge success.
Right.
I mean, it was a success in its own way, but it didn't run for very long. Let's put it
No,
that
it
way.
didn't. Mhm.
Um, I guess I wanted to do some different things. I did a production of the Glass Menagerie at the McCarter. I went here and there. I just did other things. I don't know. And then yes, I got married and I had a baby.
Yeah.
Well, I guess no, I did She Loves Me before my daughter was born.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I had just gotten married, I guess. It was the year after I got married.
This is something though that I think I know that it was a huge awakening for me, um, that like when I moved to New York and was doing the whole auditioning thing. I mean, I had many different chapters in there where I was there and then I was in graduate school and then I was back and um, but I remember I worked with another colleague of yours from chess, Randy Graff, was telling a story one day about the fact that she had been in Grease, in the musical Grease.
Uh-huh.
She wasn't in the original company, but probably in the late 70s, I think. And then she didn't do anything on Broadway until Les Mis. So it was like a 15-year hiatus. And I remember being terrified by that. I remember thinking, oh no, like, so you get this great thing and you finally have realized the dream of for some of us, I don't, some of us never had that dream exactly, but of being in this big Broadway vehicle, and then it's over, or you leave the show and you have to go back out and audition and you never know when it's going to happen. I think it's fascinating to me.
I mean, I never thought of Broadway as the end, the goal.
Right. Yeah.
Broadway, the best thing about Broadway is that you actually get paid for your work.
Exactly.
Um, but it, some of the best, my work I've done has been off Broadway and regional theater and, most exciting work. I mean, Fun Home started at the off Broadway,
Yeah.
I've been able to do classic plays that I probably wouldn't be able to do, wouldn't at this moment in time be cast in on Broadway, that I got to do regional theaters. I did Chekhov and Tennessee Williams and, you know, so to me, it's not about Broadway. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. I totally 100% agree with you. It was just such a horrifying thought for me that, oh, like you can realize a dream and then you still have to go back and keep applying for the job over and over again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Never ends. It never ends.
It never ends. It doesn't. It's true. It's the life of the actor. It really is. So that yes, I was very delighted to see you've done a lot of so-called straight acting that's not musicals. You played Laura in the Glass Menagerie. I loved that. I had no idea that Emily Mann directed,
Emily
right?
Mann directed, and Shirley Knight, the late great Shirley Knight, played Amanda. And she had worked with Tennessee Williams.
Yeah, of
She,
course.
I mean, talk about the rehearsal room being a classroom. Oh my
Oh,
God,
that,
I learned so much from her.
yeah,
So much.
yeah, yeah. And you played Olga in The Three Sisters, which I would have given anything to see that. I think you would be such a lovely Olga. I love that play with all my heart.
God, I love it too. It was
I've directed it twice, been in it, it's like it's followed me all my life. So,
such a dream. It was such a dream. I just loved it.
and you did that at the Intiman, yes? Is that
Yeah, Art Sure directed it.
Bart? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Um, so then it's something that I just want to kind of backtrack about. So we were talking about um, the processes of getting these plays up. So the 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 development of Les Mis, as I said, had already happened before it ever came to New York, really. Chess was its own experience, I'm sure. But then Fun Home, the story that I love about Fun Home and your connection to it is that it seems, at least on paper, that you were with it from the very beginning. It seems like.
Pretty much, yeah. I think they had done an early incarnation of something. I'm not really sure, but I did the very first reading that Sam Gold directed, and that where they were really began. It was sort of the beginning of the journey to where it ended up,
Right,
becoming what it was.
right.
And it was I think it was the earliest I'd ever been involved with the development of something.
Because I think
Where
that was,
it was written on me, really written on me, and I really and they Lisa Crone and Janine Sori and Sam Gold were such amazing collaborators, both with each other and with us, and really listened to us, and really they really saw. I mean, even at the very end when I said something to Lisa, I think it might have even been on our closing night. I said, I can't, what you made is so extraordinary. And she said, well, we all made it together. And that I thought that was a very generous thing to say, because I only believe that a tiny bit, because I really think the genius came from them. But uh, that was the feeling that it had, is that we made this thing together, and it was extraordinary experience.
yeah. And it's an extraordinary piece. I mean, oh my God, um, yeah, I love it so much. And I was within 2 weeks of starting rehearsal for it when COVID hit.
Oh no, you're kidding. Where?
A lovely theater here in Cleveland called Ensemble Theater. I was going to get to play the role before I was just too damn old for it. But yeah, it was really heartbreaking. And we still, we talk about, I think there might be some of the company members probably here in the audience somewhere, but we were so excited about getting to do it. And then,
No,
everything.
another time.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm feeling a little bit like my time has passed. But Michael Cerverus is certainly as bald as I am. So, so just slap a wig on me.
You slap a wig on you. It's amazing what a wig can do.
It really is, isn't it? So anyway, yeah, Fun Home has so many connections to Oberlin, obviously, because not only you, but Alison Bechdel graduated from here. Oberlin is featured prominently in the
Oh yeah,
play.
yes. Well, it's funny because at that first reading, the day we did our presentation, Allison was there,
Yeah.
and we were introduced, and I said to her, I know you went to Oberlin, but you might not know that I went to Oberlin. She said, you did? And I said, when did you graduate? And she said, 1981. I said, so did I. So we were there at the same time.
That's Oberlin for you, man.
Proud, but
That is Oberlin for you.
Could have crossed.
Amazing.
I know, it was kind of amazing.
Truly amazing. And then I had the good fortune of seeing the production at the Public. I never saw it on Broadway, so I didn't see the move. But of course, I was there with a whole bunch of Oberlin students, right?
that. We did a
Yeah,
talk back. Yes, I forgot
right.
about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was
yeah.
great.
It was really, really fun. It was so exciting to get to do
Sorry
that.
you didn't get to see it on Broadway.
I am too, because I would like to have seen how it translated, how it transferred. And I know that it was staged very differently.
Well, we had that very rare experience, and this is because of the brilliance of Sam Gold, of transferring from a small, intimate off-Broadway theater to a big Broadway house, and it became more intimate and better because he had the idea of doing it in the round, in the full round.
Yeah.
And also I have to credit our very brave producers who had this hit show. Like you couldn't get a ticket to it. It won
I know.
every award it could have won off Broadway. And, you know, everybody told them they were taking a risk moving it to Broadway. And he said, instead of just picking up that production and putting it in one of the smaller proscenium houses, he said, you know, I think we should look at Circle in the Square because I think would work even better in the round. And they said, okay, they trusted him.
Wow.
It was really, the whole thing was really risky. But I can remember when we started rehearsing it in the round, and I was freaked out because I realized what I was going to have to give up in this new production. And I thought, oh God, what am I going to do? And as we went through the show, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing what it does. And it really felt like the audience was in that house with us. And it felt so real. I mean, it just felt, anyway, it was amazing. It was amazing, the shift that happened.
Amazing. Yeah, so I just think that how often do you get to grow with a piece like that over time? It's a rare gift.
Yeah, no, and all the actors were they were in it for the long term. You know, they were,
Right.
everyone just went out every night to tell that story better, you know, make it better than the night before and listen to each other. And really, it was an extraordinary experience.
Amazing. All right, I'm going to, because I want to talk a little bit about, because I know that there are some students here who would really love to just hear you chat a little bit about your personal process, I guess, is how it goes. So I am going to play this clip, but I am so technically inept. So you're just going to have to forgive me while I figure out how to make this happen.
You'd be more technically inept than me.
Well, you might be surprised. It's really pretty bad. Fortunately, I have students in my class who are constantly helping me with all of this nonsense. So here we go. I'm going to locate this clip first, and then here we go. Getting everything all set up. Talk amongst yourselves, all of you. Here, this is the one that I want. Stop it. Here first. Now I'm going to share screen. Now, hopefully, I've had very good luck with this, but sometimes, sometimes when you share videos on Zoom, it can be a little clunky and weird. But so far, I've been okay. So we're going to do this, and then where did you go? Okay.
Oh my God.
I know, there you are. There's all kinds of Judys. There's Judys everywhere. All right, we're going to listen to this.
Would you do me a great favor before you leave? Would you write a letter for me?
Certainly.
My dearest Fosca, please.
My dearest Fosca.
I wish I could forget you, erase you from my mind. But ever since I met you, I find I cannot leave the thought of you behind. That doesn't mean I love you.
That doesn't mean I love you.
I wish that I could love you. Please, I know that I've upset you. I know I've been unkind. I wanted you to vanish from sight, but now I see you in a different light. And though I cannot love you, I wish that I could love you. For now I'm seeing love like none I've ever known. A love as pure as breath, as permanent as death, implacable as stone. A love that like a knife has cut into a life I wanted left alone. A love I may regret, but one I can't forget. I don't know how I let you so far inside my mind. But there you are, and there you will stay. How could I ever wish you away? I see now I was blind. And should you die tomorrow, another thing I see, your love will live in me. I remain always your Giorgio.
So you may have heard my dog barking while we were listening to that clip. Sorry about that. But I meant to set that up for those who might not know the play. It's from Passion. It's from Stephen Sondheim's Passion. And the character Fosca is on her deathbed and has her
Not quite her deathbed.
not quite
dead.
yeah, she's right. She's in the last throes. Before she's shuffling off to Buffalo, as they say.
She has one period of recovery before she actually dies.
And so, but she has her lover write a letter to her. She dictates a letter that's to be sent to her in his voice. So it's really complicated in terms of character relationship. And if this is a piece that you don't know, it's one you should know, because it's really such an extraordinary, so beautiful. I just love it so much. But anyway, had all kinds of things flashing up on my screen. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about actor process, and the reason you asked me why I chose this particular clip, and the reason that I did is because I think it's such a beautiful example of, different people call it different things, but I would call it imaging, that there's a really specific something going on that you're connected to. And I'll just leave it at that. Can you talk a little bit about where the words of a song come from when you're performing them?
Well, I mean, they come from I mean, if I don't, how to answer that question, where do they come from? I mean, I don't think of a song as being anything different from a scene or a monologue or anything else. And everything, it always you have to come up with it in that moment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, in this example, has been thoroughly rejected by him, and he feels he's being asked to come visit her by her at her sick bed. He's been told by the doctor that the only thing really that'll keep her alive is if he goes and visits her. And he feels that he's being manipulated,
Hmm.
which is left open for interpretation whether that's what's happening or not.
Hmm.
Now, the letter is manipulative for sure, but it's also, so basically, I think always the most interesting things are when you have an idea in that moment that it's not planned.
Right.
So he comes to see her, they have this conversation, and then he's leaving. And she says, "Wait, will you write a letter for me?" And he thinks, of course, that she's asking him that because she's too weak to write it herself and doesn't realize what she's doing. And he said, until she says, "My dearest Fosca," and then he understands what she's doing. So, in that moment, Fosca's just coming up with it.
Mhm.
And I think there are so many ways that you can interpret that. But actually what Sondheim told me, I don't actually think is true.
Let's hear that.
That it isn't what she wants to say to him. It isn't about her. It's what she wants him to say to her. And I think, yes, that is true. And yet at the same time, those things are true for her.
About him.
About I don't know why I let you so far inside my mind, and that the love cuts like a knife. She wants him to feel what she feels.
Ah.
And that's what I think is going on. And so there's this dual thing happening. He's making her write a letter that then she can read, and in her fevered brain, try to believe that he's written these things to her. But it's also her opportunity to express these passions to him. And for him she's in a way challenging him to look at what he's really feeling about her. I know it's very complicated, but
It is.
it's, where did those thoughts come from in her? I think they come from intense need is where they come from, those words.
Yes.
And actually, to be honest, I have trouble looking at that clip because to me, I see that and it seems very timid because it's those songs, that music is so awkward to pull out of context and do on like a concert kind of stage or in front of a microphone. And I think it was so uncomfortable to me that I kept trying to just try to remember moment to moment without it feeling like I was breaking some boundaries of concert world. I don't know, it was a very strange thing to do.
Well,
to say nothing of the fact that Stephen Sondheim was sitting right behind me.
not like that's ever intimidating. But the thing, I think the reason that I love it is because I think it's a really clear illustration. These are some of the things that you just said. But it's the primary lesson that you learn as an actor is activating the moment, being alive in the moment, and playing something, an active attack on it. And so your answer, like, really was very enlightening, I think, in terms of, yeah, you're doing all of these things, but you're doing something. It's not just pretty words on a page. It's this woman's life. And
anything that you do, it could end at any moment. There's a reason that you keep going.
Yeah.
Especially in a song, because it's very easy with a song for it to feel like a set piece, you know, as opposed to an active thing that, you know, he could have gotten up and walked out of the room. He could have, you know, stopped her. She could have come to the end of that. And, you know, so, I mean, which was another very interesting thing to play in that scene, is to keep checking with him to see if is he still writing? Is he still listening? How is he reacting? You know,
Right.
then also.
And then it's after that in fact he falls in love with her.
It doesn't
Seems like.
It doesn't really happen until the train scene for, you know, towards the very end.
Right.
When she
Then it happens. Yeah.
explains to him what love is.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what a great piece. Anyway, let's see. It's 5:30. So here's what I would love to do to begin with. Thank you so much. What a great, engaging, wonderful talk. We could talk for hours, but we won't, because I'm imagining that there are, let me see, we've got some chat here.
I don't see anybody, but I see 6 of us on this screen, but it says there are 33 participants.
There are 33 people, and it's probably just because of the way I have the gallery. I will open it up so that everybody can see. People are chiming in on.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone has a question.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take us into the gallery, as they say. I'm going to unpin us so that we can just see everybody, so that we'll feel like we're all in the room together. I always do this wrong.
Yeah, there's people.
Okay. Remove pin, and then I'm going to remove your pin so that we can all see each other. Hello, please remove the pin for me. Oh, here it is. Okay. Yeah, I told you. Completely technically.
Oh my God, I'll tell you, you know, this year of living online, the learning curve of, you know, doing so many self-tapes and lighting and camera and lenses and Zoom and pinning and all this stuff. Like, I'm still figuring it out a year later. It's just.
Well, good for you that you figured it out, because I'm definitely still figuring it out. I am too. I definitely am too. So, oh, wow, we have quite a fabulous group of people here. This is so cool.
Don't see everybody. I guess people's cameras are off, maybe.
Yeah, some people's cameras are off. But then there's also a second page and all that kind of thing. So you know what? I'm sure that people have questions, so I'm going to let you ask them, and I'm just going to shut up. You should be able to raise your hand, but I'm not going to be able to see it because there's so many people here. So just turn your mic on and ask anyone who would like to. Hello.
I just have a story, if I may tell it. I lived in Washington, D.C. for many years and taught at American University. And I met through some other friends 2 dear people named Roger and Belle.
Wait a minute. Oh my God. Hello.
Hi.
Oh,
Hi.
my parents.
Yes. So Roger and Belle told me, oh, we have this daughter, she sings. And that's all they said. And I thought, oh, isn't that nice? She probably sings in high school or you know, does little musical things. And one day they showed me a video, and this is of you singing Meadowlark. And I went, hello. And from that time on, I have followed your entire career, and I'm so happy to be with you today. Thank you.
That's so sweet. Oh, my parents would be very happy.
This person who is speaking is Mead Andrews, who is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant teacher of Alexander technique, but also all kinds of actor training stuff. She's just she's a colleague of mine from my previous institution. We haven't seen each other in a very long time, so it's just very, very exciting to see you meet. I'm so happy to.
Thank
hear
Well,
you.
that.
I was the one, I fell in love with doing Alexander technique early on in my career, and I loved it so much. And I thought this would be really good for my parents and all their aches and pains and their weird way that they move around the world. And they're very resistant to things. And I said, oh, please, come on, I'll find a teacher for you. And I can't remember, they must have found you. I don't know if I connected them to you.
Yeah, they did.
Anyway, I couldn't believe that they even agreed to do it. And then they did. And then they became great friends with me. It was so
Yeah.
lovely.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Who else would like to ask a question?
Hi, I've got a question.
Awesome, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, my name's Sarah. I graduated in 2019, and I'm going to voice what I am assuming other people also have on their minds. It is a very scary time to be a young person who wants to work in theater. Not that it's ever easy, not that it's ever the most stable career you could choose, but you know, I was working at a regional theater outside Atlanta when the shutdown started and lost my job, had to move back home with my parents, and that's a common story people are having to experience these days. And I don't know, I'm really scared. I think I'm not alone. So I was wondering if you have any advice for young people who are daunted with our industry being in a coma.
I completely understand. I sympathize. I empathize. I have thought, you know, every time I've thought about, you know, this lost time for myself, because I ain't getting any younger. And as you get older, there are fewer parts. And that's scary to me, though I have the great fortune of knowing that I do have a job at the end of this, because I was in rehearsal for something when we shut down. But I was thinking, wow, you know, for me, I'm really okay. It's really all the young people who it's really a challenge for, because, you know, I've established career, I've socked some money away, you know, I'm set up. I can weather this storm. But it's real. I understand what a huge challenge it is for young people just starting out. And I mean, I know so many people who are making their Broadway debut or just moved to New York or just getting an agent or just whatever they were doing. And but here's what I can say that I think is true, and I hope will be encouraging. And that fact that you're young is good because you've got so many years ahead of you beyond this terrible time that we're living in. Which is that I think what's gone on in this last year, in addition to the heartache and the economic challenges and everything else, is a real reckoning with how we make theater, how theater's funded, how we need to make it more inclusive, how we need to expand opportunities, how all kinds of things. I mean, I'm on the board of a nonprofit theater. I've been involved in many conversations. There's a lot of talk going on about all of these issues in terms of race, economics, accessibility, all of these things. And what gets produced, what doesn't get produced. The one disappointment is the Broadway League has not been involved in these conversations. There's been a silence, a shameful silence from those producers. But that's another issue. I think as the theater comes back, this sort of reckoning is actually going to open opportunities for people. Probably less so for me, but for young people who have so much to offer. And I really kind of believe that. I think space is going to be opened up in terms of, I think the understanding of how the economics of theater, how it's funded, but also its economic impact on communities all over the country, how it is gonna, there's this whole push now for a cabinet post of a Secretary of Arts and Culture, which there should be. Every other developed Western country has a position like that. And how government needs to be involved in funding arts and just all of these different things. I think because Broadway has become so corporate and tourist dependent, and it's going to be a while before tourists come back. I think there are going to be things produced, plays and challenging things that will be produced on Broadway that aren't necessarily for tourists. I think the nonprofits in New York are thinking about, I don't know, I'm rambling now, but I really do think if you can wait it out, I really think that there's going to be good opportunities in the future. It may take another year or two, but given that you're all young, I think that the challenge for you is to find ways to keep yourself engaged with the work in the meantime, whether it's taking classes online, reading lots of plays, once you're vaccinated, getting together with your actor friends and reading things, making your own work, all of those kinds of things. I think just to stay engaged until things are back to full life again. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
That's fabulous. Yeah, and Sarah, one thing you can do is keep coming with the great videos that you've been posting. They've been really wonderful to watch.
Thank you. My personal homework.
Yeah, really great. What else? Who else would like to ask a question?
I have a little question. Hi, I'm Graciela. I'm a first year. I don't know if that's relevant, but anyway. I wanted to know, I'm always curious about this, like when you weren't on stage, when you weren't doing anything like that, what were some like jobs that you really enjoyed that still kept you creative? And what are things that you're doing now during the pandemic that keep you creative and like working and just still inspired to keep doing theater?
Well, one of the things I really enjoyed doing when I haven't been working and also a little bit during the pandemic is teaching, which I really love to do. I don't love to do it on Zoom, but it's what we got now. But you can still get stuff done. And how have I kept myself busy? I don't know. I mean, I've been trying well, since the film and television production have started up again, I've been doing a lot of self-taping, which is, I hate, but it's what you got to do. And I don't know, doing some online performing, tons of making videos for fundraising, for different organizations. And I don't know. I wish I could tell you what I've been doing, but a little of this and a little of, and stuff like this, reading a lot. I've been taking these seminars through this independent bookstore in near me. It's kind of like elevated book clubs where you read a book with a scholar, and you meet once a week for 3 or 4 weeks and talk about the book. So things like just to keep my brain engaged and with other people, stuff like that.
Anybody else?
I have a question. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Cyril. I'm a third playwright and director and actor here on campus, and it's really appreciate just like listening. I guess my question is, you talked about being in the college and then going to the conservatory and like ending up in Boston and New York and all those different places. I think my question is like, how do you know when you're in the right place? Like, how do you know this is the right thing for you to be doing?
When it feels like it is, I mean, when I moved to New York, I said to myself, I'm going to give it a try. If it doesn't work out, I'll find something else to do, I have my good Oberlin education. And I just loved being in New York, and I started working, and it just felt right. Listen, there are times when in my career that I thought, is this really what I want to be doing? But you're going to always have those moments in life. But then when it feels right, when you're engaged, when when it's working, then it's right. But you have to take the chance to find out whether something's right, because the mistake is to go, which I used to make, is like, oh, I don't know if I can do that or if I want to do that. I used to talk myself out of things because I was afraid of what might or might not happen. And you can't, just have to go for it.
I love that. See, you always had that spirit. Even when you were shy, you were like, I'm gonna make this happen. I think it's fantastic. Who else out there?
I'll ask a question if you don't mind.
Please
I don't
do.
mind at all.
You can hear me. Hello, I'm Jordan. I'm class of 2017. And something that I think is so complicated for this generation of people, but especially liberal arts students, is getting in the door in the same way that maybe you were able to 20 or 30 years ago. Because I love my Oberlin education, and I can speak now being outside that I think we are just as talented as the kids that went to NYU and Northwestern and Carnegie Mellon, but we didn't have showcases.
Right.
We're kind of dropped into the world in a way that's really just not quite as connected as the people around us. And so I guess I'm wondering for you, when you're noticing young performers, what is making them stand out? How do they get your attention if they didn't have maybe the same connections that other people did, or like, yeah, I guess like how are you noticing people getting in the door without these like conservatory education?
Oh, I don't think there's one answer for that, because first of all, what people do now in terms of getting seen in the city is so different than when I started out. I don't really know what people do. I mean, I'm sure some of the things are the same. They look at backstage and see where the open calls are. They, get in touch with people who they know, who maybe can introduce them to somebody or whatever. I never did a showcase because I didn't, I guess
You went to Oberlin.
Sorry?
Because you went to Oberlin.
Because you went to Oberlin.
Because no, I did what I said. I called people I knew. I found a class. I went to open calls. I did summer stock. I just did all those kinds of things. And I'm sure those kinds of things are still the way people, do things. I don't really know that much about showcases. I don't know that many people who have done them or did them or.
They've really become the thing.
Oh, really?
The door opener. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they are. They're great, and they're
casting directors come or agents come.
Yes, all of the above. Mm-hmm.
Don't open calls still happen, or not as much?
Yes, but if you're non-equity in a city like New York, and people like Katie and Sarah can probably speak to this as well, like the odds of you getting in that door are slim, especially for larger companies. And so, getting work, it is a huge hill to climb right at the beginning, at least. And persistence is obviously, key, but, are there other ways? Who do you call? Who do you email? How do you give yourself the same opportunities that other people had been given by their institution?
We tried to do that for Oberlin students, didn't we, Matthew? A little bit.
We did. We did.
Get organized, but then it didn't ever continue somehow. But
this is, in fact, let's put in a plug for that. If anybody out there has, an endowment that they would like to give us, we would, because because Judy had this fantastic idea, and then I worked really hard in making it happen, where we took several students. In fact,
I was there.
yes, Miss Katie
Back in the
Early was
day.
there. Yes, and we took a whole bunch of students during winter term to New York. Oh God, Katie, I just flashed on us sitting next to one another and during class menagerie, weeping.
Weeping.
Oh my God,
Oh
sorry.
my God.
that was an aside. But anyway, and the good news is, and this won't, Jordan, I'm so sorry that it's not going to be of use to you, but we have a dean now, my love. We have a dean now who's really interested, I think, in making a lot of headway in terms of trying to figure out how to connect our current students with alumni. There's so many Oberlin alumni out there in the world, and we're doing our best. And I think that we're right now at a place where the dean is recognizing for the first time that since I've worked here that, oh, the arts in general and theater specifically is a huge draw for students to Oberlin. In the last admitted class, 190 students expressed an interest in perhaps taking a theater class at some time during their time at Oberlin. So, we're starting to be seen and heard a little bit better. But I did have a showcase when I graduated with my MFA, but certainly not as an undergrad, and did the same things that Judy did and the same things that all of you have been doing. I mean, your gig, Jordan, in New Hampshire, it's the same thing, and then you just try to learn to take advantage of those networking ways in positive ways, not like take advantage, but you know what I mean. So it's rough. Anyone else?
I feel like I wasn't very helpful to you because I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Hi, Matthew. This is Roxana. I'm actually not a student of Oberlin. I'm just Matthew's friend on Facebook. But I just wanted to ask what it's like to work with Stephen Sondheim. I know you've worked with him twice, and I really wished I could have a time machine to go back and see the Passion revival that you did a couple of years ago. So I just wondered what that experience was like working with with that person and having to really deliver the goods in the room when they're in there with you.
Well, I can't, whoever you are who's speaking, I can't see you for some reason. I don't know.
I'm actually off camera. I'm just in like my workout clothes. So I feel a little awkward being on camera. So.
Well, I've never done a new Sondheim show. So I've never been in the room with him like while something's being developed. So I don't know what that's like. I've done 2 productions of Passion, and am going to do when we reopen another production of Assassins. He is, but when he walks in the room, everybody's like, but the first time I worked with him, when I was especially intimidated by him being in the room, he would come to run-throughs and he would give us notes, and his notes were always so incredible that they were always welcome. It was always done. They were always precise. They were always helpful. So and he is a supremely awkward man, but is also really, he lets you know when he really appreciates your work. I mean, he really does. The closing night of the Passion that we did at the Kennedy Center, which was a different production, was in summer of 2002. It was as part of the Sondheim celebration. Passion was sort of like the stepchild. It was like the show, that the difficult show that nobody at first wanted to see. And it turned out to be the most beloved production maybe in that series. And for Sondheim to see it received that way, he was so happy. And I'll never forget that our closing night, when the curtain came down it was Rebecca Luker and Michael Cerveris and I standing on stage, and the curtain came down, and he walked out on stage and put his arms around all of us and said, "Thank you, thank you." And it was so generous and beautiful. And I felt like he just so appreciated our work that, anyway, but that said, he walks in the room and you go,
Well,
you want to do his work justice because it's so brilliant.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. And also, just as an aside, I wrote in the chat that Pocahontas was the first movie I ever saw. I'm a millennial, so here we are. And so your voice has been with me like my whole life, which I don't know. And I didn't know it was you at first. And then I think I was like Googling, and then I was like, oh my God. So thank you. That just meant a lot to me. And then especially, I'm a woman of color, just seeing a Disney princess that looked like me was very impactful, although I couldn't express that as a young kid. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you for saying that.
It is 4 minutes until 6, and so we have to let Judy go, although we'd love to spend the rest of our night, I'm sure, talking with her. But I just want to, it's not the happiest note to end on, but you just mentioned Rebecca Luker, and I just want to send up a prayer to her and her beloved family.
Yeah.
We lost her, sadly, to ALS, to Lou Gehrig's disease, just very recently.
And it's the first time I'm going to be singing on a stage with actual musicians. We're filming a tribute to her we're filming it on April 5th, and I think it's May 4th, I think. It's going to be streamed to raise money for an organization called Target ALS. You're all invited to come. It costs $20 or something. And
I think it's 30, but yeah.
Amazing, a lot of amazing actors, singers paying tribute to her. And it will be a beautiful thing because we didn't get to gather and have a memorial for her.
I know.
So
sad. Anyway, oh God, Judy, thank you so much. This is such a pleasure.
Nice to kind of meet all of you in your little boxes.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you.
All of you.